as you said before, like usually no one comes through what I did and talks about it. Or if they are, they soon relapse again. You know, I became more and more paranoid. I thought people were talking about me all the time. And the further away I grow from, being back on the ward again, the more I can sort of like do good things.
You have found the Thinking Mind podcast.
Thank you so much for coming. We've talked before, but I thought it'd be really good to talk in person like this. I've heard a little bit about your experiences, and I think it's really valuable when people have been through having a mental health condition, such as yourself, to be able to talk about the insights, the difficulties, the problems you had would be so useful, I think, both for people working in mental health or people who they themselves might be having a mental health condition or who know people who have a mental health condition. So why don't you talk a bit about, what your experiences were, what you learned from them?
It started out like any other person's life, I suppose. I had a girlfriend. I was doing well at school. I was doing like martial arts, and I went to Canada because I'd heard that one good joint can bring you the same hypervigilance, self-awareness as a lifetime of practicing martial arts. I thought it's a quick way there.
Where did you hear that?
I think it was a music magazine, like Melody Maker or NME or something like that. I remember really at the time, whatever this band says, I would have taken it seriously. And because I was so serious as a student, I had no friends who were dealers, no friends who were even secondary friends, a friend removed sort of thing who knew someone who could get some. So I went to Canada. I was down to do a psychology degree. So I went to Canada thinking I let my hair down before I come back to do a psychology degree. And in Canada, I became so popular, like inverted commas, because I was English and I wanted to get stoned. So this opened lots of social doors for me that I'd never had before. Plus, I thought I was developing this psychic awareness.
When we've talked before, you said that smoking cannabis gave you a sense of identity.
Well, exactly. I was like a globe traveling stoner for the whole year. I didn't have to do any other thinking apart from that. My identity was a stoner from Britain. That was it. So
before that, did you feel like you had this vacuum, like you didn't have a sense of identity?
Well, part of it was that, I was really well-rounded and a reliable person, punctual and trustworthy and like all good qualities, but none of it was reckless. So I thought I'd develop like work-life balance people talk about. It was all work for me then. And so I went to Canada and things just fell apart. Because I came back to England and suddenly I had nothing unique about myself. Everyone was English speaking and everyone was getting stoned all the time.
What year was this?
This was 96 I came back.
96. So you had started smoking a lot of weed in Canada.
Yeah.
Spent a year there, came back, and then what happened next?
I kept retreated into my shell like more and more. If there were like social occasions, even if it's just mingling with other students, I want the ground to swallow me up. I was trying to think where I should laugh, trying to think about being spontaneous well. And before long, I would just never leave my car, or I would like only find sort of meaning whenever I got high. Because in the past there was good connotations with it. I had all this popularity in Canada, but in England there was none of that. And I became more and more paranoid. I thought people were talking about me all the time. No one would tell me the truth. Even my family to some extent, because they were like, the geographer had his grip on everybody around me, and I had made this supernatural figure hate me, which is like a human emotion. I'd made the geographer seem human, and that was the ultimate insult. So he was going to spend his whole life making my life hell.
So you had this internal character called the geographer.
Yeah, well, it was like me against him, and he represented everybody else.
I see.
There was a time I spent a time in New York to try and to meet up with my cousin to promote the sort of advertising career I thought I might have. But when I was over there, obviously you walk down the city, people notice you like in passing, and so I thought everyone who'd ever laid eyes on me was suddenly dead.
Was that?
Yeah. There's a Radiohead music video along these sorts of lines, but I really thought I was responsible for deaths of hundreds and thousands of New Yorkers.
So you're starting to feel that this kind of magical thinking that people you looked at, or people that looked at you, were dead.
Well, magic is such a positive word.
Yeah.
It's like, it was just like devastating paranoia. I never thought that I was capable of not trusting people as much as I grew to sort of find.
Yeah.
So everything was terrifying.
So you felt you were a threat to other people, but also that people were a threat to you, is that right?
Yeah. So I went through a period in 2005, because between 1999 and 2010, I was in and out of hospital all the time. Yeah. In 2005, though, I thought that I'd got my act together. Yeah. And I started thinking, what happens if I don't take the pills? Yeah. So I went on this rampage, which is where the Geographer book starts. Yeah. And I got arrested after 3 days, walking around London for 3 days. No one knew who I was, what I was doing.
And that was just after 3 days of not taking medication?
Yeah, it was notably quetiapine and citalopram. Yeah. I'm still on quetiapine.
Yes. So how much, let's go back to when you had first gotten back to England.
Yeah.
How much weed would you say you were smoking at that time?
There was a special place that people knew to go to, that you could even find lecturers queuing up for this stuff. Yeah. And I would go there once or 2 or 3 times a week. Okay. And I would just burn through it. I wouldn't sort of plan it or anything, what I'm going to use. If it was seeds, I would sort of just accept that I'm not worth anything more than seeds, because that's like, you can't roll with seeds. Yeah, I felt that it was my life's calling to keep getting high. And I thought, I'm in a bit of trouble now. I feel a bit nervous and worried about things, but if I keep smoking it, I'll come full circle and I'll be fine. Mm-hmm. So I really thought it was going to help me recover too. Yeah. But yeah, 99, my mum immaculately sort of got me in front of the GP. I'd already tried suicide 3 times, but I would cover it up and pretend it didn't happen. And I was quite clever with explanations and stuff. Like, I fell off that bridge. I didn't jump off, but she came round and could understand that I was really struggling, and I couldn't tell her the truth because I was so worried about what would happen if I did. So,
what were you worried would happen?
Well, I mean, no, my close family would get like raped and tortured and murdered, and if I didn't take my own life, they would go through that. But if I did, they'd be saved. So it was selfish of me not to do the honourable thing. Like I loved samurais and stuff. It would be like a samurai honour killing, you know. So
to you, killing yourself was to save your family.
Yeah.
And you had beliefs that you had to do it in order to save your family.
If you imagine you're sitting in a room and there's background noises, but those noises can become like instruction. That's when you know you're having a problem, you know, because it would start with like a travel clock with really loud analog, you know, tick tock, and every second would be another syllable, like Adam, you are wretched, and you imagine that never stopping.
Was that the voice of the geographer?
Well, he's too powerful for that, but his minions would be talking to me like that, and they had me convinced about this whole like save your family, take your life thing, all the time that was going on. And
did you have visual hallucinations as well?
Not nowhere
really.
near as powerful as audio. Yeah,
it was mainly auditory.
Yeah.
So tell me about your first hospital admission.
It was a breath of fresh air, really, because it was 96 and I had no previous history with mental health services. I was given Solparide, and I could walk in, and there was no weed on the ward for me. So later on there might have been, but so I could walk into an empty room and there was silence, like mentally, no voices, nothing. But I got discharged and kept taking the meds. I knew I wanted to keep my mum happy because, you know, that's what you should do. But also I had the cannabis was calling to me too. So I'd leave the hospital with a prescription. I'd take my meds, everything, but I would still be getting high. So that was the wild card every time. But it took me ages to realise that when I get high, I relapse.
How long did it take you?
To realise, good few years.
Few years.
I mean, they increased the prescription from Solpride to, olanzapine, sodium valproate, risperidone. Those 3 have gone. Now I'm on like quetiapine, clozapine, and lithium.
So you're on quetiapine, clozapine, and lithium.
Yeah, the clozapine staff are amazing. I see them every 4 weeks, and so if they're listening, you're doing great.
Yeah. What do you think? So you said Solpride really helped you because for the first time you could walk into an empty room and there was quiet. And then what was it like when you were on medication and still smoking weed? Was that kind of an in-between state?
I don't know. Every time the weed came into it, bad things started to happen. I'll get worried, and like to personal disrepair. Like at one point, I had these like dreadlocks because I didn't realize that people with long hair, if they don't want dreadlocks, they brush their hair like I do now every day. Also, I was really overweight. That's the problem I'd like to see changed, actually.
And you're on 3 medications which are associated with weight gain. You've been overweight in the past. You're pretty lean now.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex.
And it's really important because I think a lot of our patients feel the situation is quite hopeless. Like if you're on a medication that causes weight gain, you're doomed to experience that. So how do you stop that from happening?
Eat healthily. I mean, if you're going to have a takeaway maybe once a week or once a month, try and eat as healthy as you can.
And what does healthy eating look like for you?
Well, I mean, using beans instead of mince, having fruit, rule out like crisps, chocolate, ice cream. I haven't had that for ages.
Yeah.
And I'm walking like 6,000 steps, 7,000 steps every morning. Yeah. You know, which is free.
Yes.
I used to join gyms and stuff, but I'm really, really pleased that the weight's come off because there were times when there is no hope sometimes in these places. And ordering pizza on the ward was an amazing bonding experience. Yeah. You choose the crust, the size, the toppings, whose phone you're going to use, you know, who gets the extra slices once you've finished. But now hospitals are cutting back on allowing patients to do this because of the weight gain thing. Yeah. But they still have the milk, which is annoying.
So they need a ritual to help people bond, but one that's more healthy and sustainable, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if sushi or something was I mean, the vending machines outside the heavy doors of the ward would have things that like crisps and chocolate, like it was any other plot.
It's a hospital.
Exactly. Why not have like a little refrigerated thing with doors for like mango slices or a portion of sushi or something like that? It's not your everyday vending machine place.
No. I mean, I can tell you as a doctor, you know, where I'm supposed to have been trained to think about what's the best way for people to be healthy, and nutrition was not a part of the equation of my training at all. And only later in life that I discovered, both personally for myself, but also for people that I see, that nutrition is a very important part of the equation, I think. You can do it cheaply if you're careful. Yeah. One thing that I learned recently, because I've been like lecturing for 3 years now, is the hierarchy between nurses and doctors. If like, especially with children, but also trying to find that trust, that safe space with a patient to give your first name. You know, rather, I am doctor, you know, or I am Dave. Yeah. How can I help? Yes. Immediately, there's a disarming there. Yeah. So to get that, because I think you can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped. And 100%. You want to get to that safe space vibe immediately or as quick as you can. Otherwise, they're going to block off like to any kind of help that's offered. I mean, because most addicts are quite stubborn. I was very stubborn when I was on weed and cigarettes and everything. But so to give the first name would be good. Oh, another thing I wanted to say was about normalizing. Yeah, but that is not always appropriate because sometimes I'm talking about like palindrome phrases. Yes. So like the number of letters in the words you use and the order of the words in a sentence. So to denote disrespect and respect, like, oh, wonderful, would be like respectful. But if I said abundantly no, that would be disrespectful. I was trying to think of the maths of all this. So I think it's important. So you're saying normalizing is important to make you feel like a person.
Kind of, but I wanted to be recognised for my uniqueness at the same time. Normal, I'm better than normal. Not better than normal, but yeah. It's like I want some credit for this outlandish story.
But is there also another aspect where it's useful for a mental health professional to let you know when things are going to a level where they're unmanageable?
Yeah, but I think time is a great healer, you know. And one of my favourite films, Good Will Hunting, there's an angry young man, and then there's a psychotherapist, and they're from the same rough part of Boston. They have a fight, and the next session, though, they both sit there in complete silence for an hour, which is very bonding.
Yes, it's very intense.
Yeah. It's about to get that trust and the help delivered to that client as quickly as possible, because otherwise you're just pushing away people all the time.
Yes. At what point do you think you finally made the connection between weed and your illness?
It would be just before the last admission, I think.
Yes. And was there an event which catalyzed that?
Well, my mum was going on and on at me. Before the internet, she was still researching the effects cannabis, the negative side of it. Because I heard recently, I think it's when Sir Robin Murray was on this talk, podcast, that 20 years ago, he was laughed at by Jon Snow on Channel 4. So with the background of that ignorance, I suppose, my mum was still like, yeah, but I mean, you're allergic to it. Look at what's happened to you. And finally, I understood that stubbornness again. I understood that she was right. If I stopped getting high, I stopped getting ill. Yeah.
So there's that simple cause and effect. Like you said before, whenever you smoked cannabis, bad things started to happen.
Yeah. And that's the weirdest thing. Like, the more I smoked, and the worse it would be as well.
Yes. And that's an important point in terms of the studies and scientifically trying to point out the connection, because THC content, the main active ingredient, has radically, I think probably by the time you were smoking weed, it was pretty high. Would you say you were smoking skunk?
If I could,
high THC?
Mainly it was hash. But hot rocks and stuff like that.
But the THC content has really increased. So, and they've done studies, which Robin Murray was talking about, where they've actually made a correlation. The more THC, the more likely it is that someone can have a psychotic episode.
Yeah, I mean, there's stories like Laura Stack from Colorado. Johnny'sAmbassadors.org, amazing. I think her son just had a couple of weed Haribos infused with THC, and turn up to hospital with scromating, screaming, vomiting.
Oh, wow.
Because the THC is in the 90% and up. So immediately you have that psychosis.
Yeah. So did you get an official diagnosis at some point?
Yeah. The way you put that, it sounds like I had a certificate on my wall. It changed, actually, Alex, though. It started as bipolar, then went to schizophrenia, then bipolar affective disorder, then schizoaffective disorder. Yeah. For me, though, I didn't do any background reading on it. Yes. I was like, I know that I messed it up. I was getting high too much. I'd take my pills and, do useful things and sleep a lot.
For you, was it useful to have a diagnosis, to put a name on it, or not so much?
It's something that I wouldn't mention to people.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm not proud of it. Mm-hmm. But if I take meds for the rest of my life, I don't mind.
Yes. So for you, it's more pragmatic. That you have to take certain medicines, and you know that weed is damaging to your mental health, and those are the fundamental two things you need to know.
Exactly. Yeah.
What is there anything else you think you'd like to see different about the way mental health services are run? You mentioned continuity of care before. Maybe you can elaborate on that.
Doctors, if they had the power to distribute funds, that would be amazing. I mean, because currently I'm on PIP. I don't know how long that's going to last. Yes. ESA, equally precarious in a way, because I'm trying to do good work and things. So
just for those who don't know, PIP and ESA, they're kinds of benefits.
Yeah.
So you feel that doctors should have a more direct influence on the allocation of financial benefits to the patients?
Yeah, exactly. For there to be a monetary incentive to stay well. that direct connection, instead of going to government, parts of government who are in charge of that sort of thing, who are thinking of profit loss, probably, you know, at the end of the day anyway. But if my doctor like gave me, I don't know, £50 voucher because I did well 1 week, or I passed an important anniversary and I didn't do anything silly, I turned this down, that down, went to America, let's say. If I went to California and resisted the urge to get high, imagine like selling cannabis on like or billboards and things. I mean, it's hard enough in a way seeing alcohol advertised so widely. If it was cannabis too, you know, if I came back from I don't know, San Diego or LA or something, I'd been there a week, I should go there, and didn't sort of give into it, because obviously I'd start relapsing if I did. Yeah. That to have that kind of thing, or anything like, yeah, rather than have to apply through charities.
It's a humiliating process.
Very much so.
Yeah, and it's a rigorous process as well. Exactly.
I mean, I was promised lifelong DLA, so they stopped DLA.
They changed that to PIP.
To PIP, exactly.
And now do you reapply every year? Or every few years?
I was given 5 years, which was amazing. But, you know, who knows? Because my lecture work is so sporadic. It's like the same cohort, but next year kind of thing. So the lecturers mean really well. But, if my doctor was in charge of, you know, how much ESA I got, or if I got PIP as a benefit, an added benefit, that would be amazing.
It's one of the interesting challenges, I think, for boys and men, is how to channel your aggression appropriately. So, because you don't want to get rid of your aggression, because that aggression in the broad psychological sense helps you to move towards what you want.
So I went to a boys' school, and it wasn't boarding or nothing like that. But when I was there, to be a danger to myself or others was something to be fostered.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
And if you watch Hollywood these days, I mean, like a young Joe Pesci, to be like impetuous and volatile and supremely angry and violent. Exactly.
So there's something about the culture around young boys which you think could be changed.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a shame. I mean, this, what was his name? Jordan Peterson. He recently said he's got massive influence about young men and things like that. He was like, you want to be a monster, but you want to be a monster who can control that monstrosity. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, you know, I felt quite monstrous in that, and I feel like I'm under control now. Yeah. But for him to say that, I thought was a little bit irresponsible.
Okay.
Because you've got young boys thinking, I haven't done anything monstrous. Yeah. What if I'm going to be like him, like his advice? I'm going to have to, you know, destroy something for no reason.
Yeah. So you feel it could be easily misinterpreted.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. For me, this whole safe space and trust and everything else, it's just so important to recovery. Yes. Some of the continuity of care of the nurses was amazing. I knew these nurses, like, it was a 10-year period from 1999 to 2010. And I knew most of those nurses, and they knew me. And there was the one-to-ones were great. When I was told to go into counselling, I clammed up. I didn't say anything. But when it was my idea, you know, to do a one-to-one, then... So
you're talking about one-to-ones with nurses during an admission? So
yeah. That was probably one of the best things about being an inpatient.
Yes, the one-to-ones.
24 hours. Yeah. But the milk was terrible.
Was it helpful to see, to have other patients around you experiencing similar things? Did it help sort of shine a light on what you were experiencing?
There's some weird conversations, because if you're in a smoking room with someone and say, what are you in here for? You say, destroyed a pub or something like that, just a window or something. And then they'll say, I took my clothes off and ran around. And it's so strange, because the reason you're in there is you've had problems and you've done stupid things perhaps, or irresponsible things. And that's the whole sort of like basis. They were desperate places for the most part. I mean, I thought that I should take my brother's life because he was like a globally recognized demon, like in charge of the surfaces of the body. Yeah. Could give someone blindness, deafness, or a rash, or like perpetuate the idea of racism and stuff like that. And so I thought I I had to kill him.
So you can see how there's like connection. One belief leads to another belief, leads to another belief.
Even though it's just the delusion, the level of reality was just...
It felt so real.
Yeah. Everything was my fault also. There's a lot of guilt going on.
Yes, a lot of guilt. It just seems like a lot of overstimulation.
Yeah.
Just constantly being overstimulated.
Yeah. It took me ages to realise that if someone's going through mental anguish, do some exercise.
Yeah.
For me, I was like, you must be joking.
Yeah.
What has like mental problems got to do with exercise?
Yeah.
I thought that was rubbish advice. But now I've thought it through, and it's like it makes you physically tired, so you go to sleep. You know?
It reduces that overstimulation a bit.
Exactly. It totally was that. Lots of sleepless nights.
Did you ever try therapy or counselling eventually?
The one-to-ones I did. It'd be a bit like, I'm not Catholic, but going to a confession. I could unload all of these nightmares and why I haven't been sleeping onto a benevolent nurse.
So speaking about it somehow lifted the burden?
Very much so, yeah. Even if I was slightly worried that I was incriminated that person, I didn't want to, I would think, this is just ridiculous. I haven't slept in like a whole week or whatever it is. And talking definitely helped.
Talking helps. Yeah. Do you think it would be useful to have, because right now, at least in South London, the way services are set up, you'll have a different consultant psychiatrist if you're in hospital or out of hospital. Do you think there's a benefit to that, or do you think it would be better to have the same doctor overseeing your care?
The same doctor. I mean, because you can't. There's only so much you can get from notes.
I mean, as you say, the rapport is so important, and so if I can imagine that if you develop the rapport slowly in the community, then once you're unwell, you at least know you can trust that person.
Exactly.
On some level.
Yeah. I kind of being creative again. You say paranoia will destroy you as a kind of a rhyme. I started thinking trust is a must.
Trust is a must. Trust is a must in healthcare.
Yeah.
If you don't trust the person who's helping you.
Exactly. And I thought most of my doctors, because my head was still full of weed and everything, they were prescribing me medications so they get rich. I thought they get, I mean, olanzapine made by Pfizer or something. Yes. That's why he's put me on olanzapine. Yeah. I didn't trust anybody. Yeah. And I like to say that, people say, take the world on alone. You're going to have, get nowhere if you're not at least an associate with someone. You have to have, and family, I think, if you're lucky, is your first time to sort of experiment with being a team player. Yeah. Your family is your team. Yeah. And I've been very lucky with the team I was given.
Yeah, it sounded like they were very supportive. Very
strong, yeah.
What do you think about getting sectioned, the Mental Health Act, stuff like that?
So I think it can be the only option. If someone's like smashing up the high street and people are watching, the police can't move, that person obviously, if they're not reacting to any advice or reason, then I would hate to say like lock everyone up, but it's
sometimes it's the only option.
I was sectioned twice, I think, but most of my stays were actually like voluntary. Yeah. But I mean, in terms of like respect levels and things on the ward, someone who's got sectioned has a lot more respect than someone who just voluntary, especially if there's no like sort of obvious musculature to that person. They're going to sectioned.
So there's actually strangely a bit of respect for people who are sectioned on the ward among patients. You mean?
That would be good to be aware of too.
So it sounds like even within the hospital environment, there's a lot among the patients about status, hierarchy, respect, and probably disrespect as well, I imagine. So respect among patients, respect from staff to patients is very important. It makes you feel human when someone respects you.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So your last admission was in 2010, is that right?
Yeah, it was March the 9th was when I was discharged. Yes. And
it sounds like that was a real turning point for you.
I quit smoking.
Does the smoking
in October? Yeah. Just, I mean, to get lots of rest and try and make a positive impact.
Yeah, that's what you're doing now. Maybe you can tell me a bit about that. When did you write the book?
Well, I started writing in 2012, and it took 6 years. Then I got published in May 2018. You would, if it was written like as a horror film, you would believe it, because all of this was like led to me being petrified of everything, basically. So now I've got on the @gridley.com, there's an embedded video of me talking about the geographer and things.
Yes. When you wrote your book, was it, because I talk to my patients a lot about the power of writing things down therapeutically. Was it therapeutic for you to put all that in writing?
Yeah. I think it's Julia Cameron who wrote a book called The Artist's Way, and she suggests writing 3 pages of longhand every morning, and then to get the rubbish out of the way, and then you get to your true sort of creative calling after that. But this stuff was just, it was life or death. There was stuff like French-English bilayers, which is when I would be walking with this girlfriend of mine when I was trying suicide all the time. I would cover it up, and she didn't know me at all or anything. She was a guard for the geographer. She would be talking in harmless English, like, did you see EastEnders last night? It was great. But underneath, at the same time, she was phonetically saying harmful French. So she was saying like, come and get him at like 10 p.m. He's usually in bed by then. So the levels of mistrust and suspicion.
You have when you speak about your experiences, you have a very humorous approach, and it's like you can see it with, even though it's very dark, a lot of what you're saying, it's like you can bring that levity into it. Do you feel that having written the book, it's like you feel a little bit unburdened? Oh,
totally. Yeah. There were parts that I didn't want to... when I realised how extreme they were, like the thing about my brother with the lava and all that, when I realised how extreme they were and how unique, I mean, I've met people with stories like this, on the wards, but maybe they're at that stage of their recovery where they haven't trusted anyone with it yet. So I totally... it's amazing that you recognise the power of writing things down. Are
you meeting patients a lot at the moment?
Only with Dr. Martin DeForte's cannabis clinic.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so we usually have people on the call from different wards and things.
Is there any particular advice? Let's say someone's listening and either they themselves are experiencing a mental health condition, or maybe someone and they know, maybe someone in their family. Any particular advice?
Well, I mean, mental illness isn't always incurable. I think there's always a way out. If the person has made a decision, no matter how far back and how much they will defend that decision, they can always make another decision not to do that still.
You don't have to keep going down that path.
No, exactly. There's always, like, if your loved one's in a coma, it doesn't mean that they're dead. No. You can go there and talk to them. Nothing comes back from them, maybe. It's a bit like that with being mentally ill, extremely...
So there's difficulty reaching them.
Yeah.
But you have to keep trying.
Yeah. I mean, I remember some instances where at the time I was unresponsive, but thinking back, it's like that was the best way I could have been like treated, like with such respect.
So even though you were difficult to reach, you could still perceive someone trying to reach out for you.
Yeah. And it's so sad that usually, when mental health reaches the press, normally it's like it's a killing spree or something like that. But and they like turn on their parents or their family. I think personally that's because the parents and the family are often the last ones to leave that person. So that's all they've got left. I mean, I was losing friends left and right when I was ill because I thought there was this conspiracy, the geographer conspiracy. So if, like, I was going to say, so Derek and Derek and Mike. Derek told me a secret, said don't tell anyone. I go and see Mike after that, and I tell him the secret because I thought that Derek and Mike are talking anyway. So it'd be an insult to Mike. So I had no confidences, and no one could trust me. My overarching thing was to try and keep on the good side of the geographer.
Yeah, so that dominated everything.
Yeah, it's like a religion. Yeah.
It's almost like the geographer was this personification of everything negative.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he was everywhere.
Like if I could speak religiously, almost like an incarnation of Satan.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't want to upset Satan.
No. Definitely not. Definitely not.
Yeah.
Is there any advice?
There was a time when I thought Satan was actually personified by this woman who was on the ward, and I would bring her cups of tea and toast just to keep her nice.
Nice to you.
Exactly.
Is there any advice you'd give a young mental health professional?
Well, if you're a caring person, it's a way of changing the world. I think you don't have to be a statesman. I think to make positive change. I do lots of work with social workers, and it's great hearing the sort of like enthusiasm that they have for making positive change and helping people on cases and this and that. Even if it's not obviously, they might not put you up for an award or something. Yeah, you can like help super glue friendships that were previously fallen apart. It's like, it's so much fun doing good things. You know, waking up early in the morning, what can this day bring? What can I bring this day? And to sort of just be a level-headed, well-minded human. And it is a great way of doing that, to become a health professional.
Yeah, I would echo that. One of the things I've learned is to be very humble about what constitutes helping someone, because it's easy to have big dreams. And actually there are little things you can do, a lot of which you've mentioned, like respect, creating a safe atmosphere, generating a rapport, trying to reach someone, that are very, very powerful, and we don't treat them with the respect they deserve as interventions.
Maybe your first reaction would be to sort of retaliate, but then you've got to think like, why am I thinking about retaliating? Why is this person looking at me like that? Why did they do that over there? And then you might realize, if you're short-tempered, hot-tempered, you're not making reasonable decisions. One of the first films I did a movie sushi of years ago now was The Godfather. And like that mixture of brutality and reason was so enticing to me.
So tell me about movie sushi. So it's like a film analysis podcast.
Yeah. I take one film every week, and through the week I would write down, with subtitles on, write down all the dialogue, all the interactions between characters and the scenes and things. A Few Good Men, there was like 20,000 words, and I sort of pare that down to about 1,500 words, and then I record it and post it on Gridley's Movie Sushi. And so it's such a for the most part, it's a departure from mental health. There are a couple of films like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, The Truman Show, Good Will Hunting, Beautiful Mind, where it overlaps. But for the most part, it's something I can do that's not all about suicide. It's not all about psychosis and cannabis abuse. So it's a great little refuge for me. It's an outlet. And it's spoken word, and it's something literary. I love writing. I post a poem every night on @Gridley at Twitter. So, I'm always posting poems. Yeah. I mean, one of the sites went on for ages, me sort of arguing my case that I wanted to keep drinking. I think at one point I was allowed to have 4 Guinnesses a week. But I mean,
What effect does alcohol have on you, do you think?
Well, for ages, I would drink for the benefit of other people, like a jester drunk, like a blackout drunk. So the next morning, people would say,
okay, so you could feel popular.
Yeah. And then I started drinking by myself. I would sit down to watch a film. I had my 6 Cronenbergs with me. And by the next morning, I had no idea what I'd watched.
Okay. So it affects your memory.
And there would be empty cans everywhere. I must have been drinking. I mean, if blackout drunk is... It's terrible, because I wouldn't know if I went to a pub who I met, where I went after that, maybe what I'd promised them, and what maybe if I'd owed them money or something at the time, if they lent me some money at the time. But then obviously this sort of highfalutin vision of myself was I've got to keep my alcohol tolerance up. Yes. So when I get invited to champagne receptions, I won't be a lightweight. I thought if I keep my alcohol tolerance up, these will be the best opportunities. But now the circadian rhythm, up early in the morning, 9 to 5, your best.
So alcohol has a negative impact on your circadian rhythm.
Yeah, and you don't really sleep that well either. Up until it was, I think it was 1:30 or 2:30 in the afternoon, and I got a phone call from this is back when phone calls. This is 2019. It might have been an email, but I was invited to the Victoria Derbyshire show the next morning on BBC, and Marta de Forti had just brought out a study in 2019, sorry, linking cannabis and psychosis in a massive Europe-wide thing. And I'd emailed her at random the previous December, and she wanted me to appear on the show, on the Victoria Derbyshire show, and the Today show on Channel 4. And there were a couple of other places too. How
have you found lecturing, talking to people about the experiences you've had?
Amazing response, really, because as you said before, like usually no one comes through what I did and talks about it, or if they are, they'll soon relapse again. You know, it's not the revolving door that, for me at least, it used to be, and yeah, with every passing day, things aren't getting worse, which is good.
Talking about it, writing about it, it must continually reinforce your recovery as well.
It does a bit, yeah.
Because you're always reminding yourself, this is what I need to keep on track. This is how bad things can get.
Yeah. I don't think there's any kind of little rabbit hole of paranoia that I haven't already explored. So, yeah, I think people say they self-medicate with like wine or something. They make it a romantic gesture to go with meal, like what goes with and sommeliers and things. But for me, it's like, I've got my own government approved medication. Yeah. I don't have to self-medicate, try my luck, but effectively with these other types.
Yeah, so professional help is invaluable for you.
Yeah, and the further away I grow from, being back on the ward again, the more I can sort of do good things.
Well, that's a wonderful note to end on. Thank you so much for coming. I think this conversation is incredibly valuable for people, like I said, who work in the field, who may know people who are experiencing mental health conditions, or who may they themselves be experiencing conditions. And all I can say is continue doing what you're doing. I think it's really important.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You are listening to the Thinking Mind podcast. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please share it with a friend or give us a rating. It really does help people to find us. If you find the podcast valuable, why not buy us a coffee to help keep us going? There's a link in the show notes. As ever, we love to hear from you and love to hear what you think. So drop us an email or get in touch on social media. Thank you so much.